Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Joan, and today we're going to be going over the October reads that I did. This was technically supposed to come out last week, but what I had recorded, I was trying to rely on my personal reading journal a little too much, so it was kind of rambly and all over the place, and I didn't like it, so I had to find some new time to film, and so I just gave myself another week. Anyway, last week the books were good in a classical sense. Another one was good in a this is one of my favorite books of all time sense, and then the third one was very mid. So the first book that I finished was 1984 by George Orwell. Crazy how insightful and still currently relevant it feels. This came out in 1949, and it follows Winston in what year they are told is 1984 in a fully communist totalitarian regime that is controlled through like relentless surveillance and propaganda and the threat of the thought police and what they will do to you in the Ministry of Love. So Winston buys a notebook which kind of brings him into this awareness that he has began committing thought crimes. This action that he has done is not a crime, and neither is owning a notebook, but it still will get him killed by the police. And so it's really interesting because it's not very like character focused. Like you get some of like Winston and what he remembers from growing up in his family, but it's really more like world building and themes of that world building. A few examples that we have for this rehabilitation is that you can go there by having an incorrect facial expression at any given time, not attending enough community events, and being somewhere where you have no like real reason to be. And so this society contains 3 classes. And so there is the inner party, or the brain of the government, and they are kind of like the politicians, the enforcers, the will of Big Brother. And then there's the outer party, which is what Winston is a part of, and that is described as the hands of the party because they do all the labor. And then the lower class is the proles, or proletariats. Literally means working class people. And they're the ones described as like basically animals. They're there to breed, things like that. And they live in extreme poverty and get bombed all the time. In the outer party, Winston works, I think it's like 60 hours per week or more. And he works in the Ministry of Truth. And his basic job is literally to rewrite history, like newspaper, birth certificates, death certificates, where it's like you control the present, therefore you control the past. The past is whatever the records and the memories agree upon. And since the party is in full control of all records and in equally full control of the minds of its members, it follows that the past is whatever the party chooses to make it. It also follows that, though the past is alterable, it never has been altered in any specific instance, for when it has been recreated in whatever shape is needed at that moment, then this new version is the past, and no different past can have ever existed. At all times, the party is in possession of absolute truth. Another big theme of this book is control. The Big Brother party wants to erase all independent thought, and it is extreme enough that people are self-policing themselves to make sure that they are behaving correctly. And it's even further enforced through like the strict schedules that they have. They're kept exhausted from having to work so many hours. They still have rations because it is a communist society. They all get the same things. It kind of creates this like normalization hive mind. Like they have what is called the 2 minutes of hate, where basically like enemies of the state, like their faces and their actions are like televised in front of everyone, and you are basically encouraged to be very violently angry during these 2 minutes. Winston also mentions that it gets like pretty animalistic once you drop the pretense of civility. As I mentioned earlier, community activities are heavily like encouraged and they're all the time. Like there's community hiking and community service and things like that you're very pressured to attend. And so we watch as Winston recognizes these things and what is happening to him and how he is feeling such a deep and utter hatred of the party and what they have done and what they continue to do, and how he has to abide or he will lose his life and be brutally tortured. And so at the point where he is accepted into the Brotherhood opposing the Big Brother party, he is asked if he will do increasingly disturbing things to further the purpose of the party, no matter what. And like he even says he'll like throw acid in a child's face for the party or for the Brotherhood. Obviously, he's like immediately picked up almost by the thought police and lengthily and brutally tortured back into a state that we hadn't seen him in. He hadn't been that brainwashed in the very beginning of the book. At this point, it's 2 plus 2 is 5, and he betrayed his love for Julia. And so the reason that I haven't brought up Julia yet until now is because it's hard for me to like make up their relationship in my head, because while it was used to like further the plot in a way, it also was not really explored. And so in the beginning, it seems that Winston hates women because of their subservience and submissiveness to the party, and because of how brainwashed they are and stupid they are. And he hates his wife for the same reasons, and mentions how like, so it seems like it's a really puritanical style where it's like sex is like heavily taboo and only used for procreation. And so his wife is so repulsed by the act because of how heavily propagandized it's been. They have to schedule conceiving a child, and she is so repulsed by it that they just don't. And the only reason they were doing it was to give the party a baby. Like, there is literally a women's anti-sex league because of how big this idea is to police bodies and make sure that you can have a grip on them at all times. And so with Julia, he immediately hates her. He assumes that she's a spy because he's seen her a bunch of places, and he just feels this like awareness, and he's like, I think about raping her and killing her. And then she gives him a note and it's like, I'm in love with you. And he's like, I love her. But so he loves her because she is openly oppositional of the party. He tells her that he loves her more every other man that she has because it is in opposition of the party and how they're puritanical about sex. So like most of the book is dedicated to them working around their schedules to be together and having this safe place, which obviously it's not a fucking safe place, but there's not like an actual romance or anything, so it's kind of like, I don't really get it. Moving on from that, I do think it's interesting that this book was banned for both pro-communism and anti-communism, because I think I kind of have an idea of reasons why for both. I have noticed that when it comes to book banning in the United States, and by I've noticed, I've been watching a lot of videos on it, but what I've noticed is that book banners will have depiction as endorsement. This is like very heavily centered around like LGBT and minority stories, no matter the nuance. And it's like, oh, there's two moms in this children's picture book disgusting porn, which it's not, but because of their beliefs, that's what they think of it as. And it's like, this book depicts communism, and it is like, oh, those evil capitalists, but it doesn't like critique capitalism in really any way, and it shows communism in a very unflattering light, which is why I think it was banned in the Soviet Union for being anti-communist, because they're working like 60-hour weeks and their rations are getting cut, and their shoes, if they even have any, have holes in them, and they all wear the same clothes and they're miserable, and it's totalitarian too, so they're like heavily surveillanced. Wonder why I wouldn't want a group of people reading this. But yeah, that's like the little reasons that I think give this a read if you haven't. Is pretty good, and it didn't even take me that long to read. It's like 336 pages for this edition, and it's pretty small, and obviously I'm not going over like really into depth or details, so take a look at it yourself and see kind of how it's matching up with our current time period, and tell me what you think. I'd like some other opinions. Me and my husband read it together, so it was really fun to go through like what we thought like the symbolism was, and kind of go over what meanings we drew from it. So highly recommend. It doesn't even read really old either, so okay. And then I read The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This has become one of my favorite books, and I've never felt like so drawn to annotation. I would hold it up with my little microphone, but it's honestly kind of heavy. It is like a little over 600 pages, but obviously I was a lot more, I don't want to say invested, but I noticed a lot more in the beginning, and it really petered out towards the end. But I will say that I did run out of a couple of my tabs and kind of only underlined instead of also tabbed. Like, I ran out of a couple of the colors. I think I also got like used to the writing style by that point too, and immediately when I started this one, I recognized like how beautiful her writing style is. Like, this is said to be the like ultimate dark academia book, and it definitely like gave that with how atmospheric its descriptions were. Like, I have never felt such a like unfettered want to study eternally in a prestigious university. It was like literally making me sick, and I am hesitant as to where I'm wanting to like start on my analysis, because I wrote like 24 pages in my reading journal, which the pages are not that big. It's probably like how big this book is, but it is front and back, so it's still quite a lot. But in its like barest bones, this is about a boy from a poor background kind of forces his way into this wealthy, elitist, like mysterious group of students that are like standoffish and weird and mysterious because they're all taught by like one teacher and they don't interact with people outside of that group. And so there's essentially two murders that happen in this book, and it's very character focused. It goes over like what they're hiding, how they're hiding it, and how they're dealing with the many mistakes that they've made in trying to cover up these murders. And so, getting into more of the details, I absolutely, and believe by design, think that we are supposed to become enamored with these characters as Robert is. I absolutely loved dissecting them. Not all of them have the same, attention given to them, I guess I want to say, because we are hearing this story from the point of view of Robert from the future telling us about the past. You have to be okay with knowing that you're not going to know exactly everything that happens, and it keeps it very mysterious in that way. There are words exchanged that Robert can see but not hear, and other things that he will omit completely. The vaguest knowledge of him that I have given you is what he gives us. He is literally a self-proclaimed liar. He does a lot of little lies that don't even really make sense in the book. And he is literally one of the most unreliable narrators I have ever read. And usually unreliable narrators are so fucking annoying. I typically hate them, but it worked so well in this. And I think that it's because throughout the novel, you're kind of rooting for him a little bit because you're in his head and naturally biased. But we are being shown these other people through his biased, rose-tinted obsession and adoration of these people. And it's obvious that he's behaving this way because he wants to assimilate himself into their group. Though I will say I don't think he ever fully does, but I'll get more into that a little bit later. But it's because of this obsession. He over-romanticizes literally everyone and everything that's happening. And he's also on drugs and drunk the whole time too, as is most of them. But I do have a couple of examples of this. So one of the other major side characters is Bunny. And so Bunny is the one that gets murdered in the book, which is not a spoiler, by the way. Which also, if you're watching this, it's all gonna be spoilers. If you haven't read this, please don't read it. Please don't watch this if you're planning on reading it, because I am going into detail. But literally, the first sentence is, "The snow in the mountains was melting, and Bunny had been dead for several weeks before we came to understand the gravity of our situation." So it's you already know that's gonna happen. Anyway, so Bunny is the character that is murdered because he cannot help himself but threaten their secret of the first murder that had happened. And I won't go into details about how that one happened. So Bunny's character is basically a mooch, right? He was literally taught that working is wrong, but his family isn't wealthy, so it just sets him up to rely on connections that he makes. And for example, literally the first time that Bunny and Robert hang out together, Bunny has invited Robert to lunch, and Robert doesn't bring his wallet because he doesn't have any money. But Bunny invited him and forgot his wallet because he doesn't have any money. And he's like very homophobic openly. He is very anti-Semitic and sexist, and it's like very disgusting and jarring to hear every time. But Robert still thinks about him fondly and mentions still loving him. And it's like, that's a choice. So my other example, another side character that I believe that we know the littlest about is Camilla, who is the twin of Charles. And through Robert's eyes, she is always described as being like ethereally beautiful and always in like vivid golds, or she is like pale and ghostly like an apparition. And I think that this is because Robert like molded her presence and identity to become synonymous with inclusion. But I will go over this a little bit further when we get to the incest plot. Another point on Robert being an unreliable narrator, he will forget major events that happen that he has been building up to the whole book. And yes, your brain will like erase memories to like save itself, but it's like the way that he's like, oh, isn't that so silly that I can't remember? Like, yeah, it is actually, now that you mention. But moving on, I think that Robert and Bunny are mirrors of each other. They are both part of the lower classes and attempting to gain status, and both changing parts of their identity to better fit in. Robert lies about his past and mimics the way that they dress and act, and Bunny has this very distinct, like, old-timey accent. And I think because his family doesn't even talk like that either, because we spend a pretty good chunk of time with his family for the funeral, and they don't talk like that. And I'm really thinking that it is his way of like further like proving his authenticity of wealth, maybe. The other point that I have for that is that they are the only two people in the group who have not slept with Camilla. And this brings it back around to why I think the incest plotline was included in this story. And so throughout the story, there are like little hints about it. Like starting out, like Charles is, pretty protective over Camilla, and it is like vaguely rumored at the beginning that they have slept together. Like, so during the first murder, Henry, Francis, Charles, and Camilla are reenacting bacchanals, which I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, which are basically like, think of Dionysus and frenzied carnal parties, So they're like trying to recreate this phenomena, and it is hinted that the twins were together during that time, but it is alleged because Robert was not there, and it is not confirmed by Francis. Then there's a scene where Camilla tells Bunny, when he's being particularly sexist, that just because she won't sleep with him doesn't mean that she's sleeping with her brother. And through Robert's eyes, he's not so much disgusted as he is surprised when the twins actually kiss in front of him. And at this point, it is after Bunny's murder too, and Charles is getting very, very jealous and possessive over Camilla, to the point where it's said that he's being very abusive towards her. But Robert only becomes angry when it's revealed that Camilla has been with Charles, Francis, and Henry and enjoys leading Robert on. And so I think that's why he's not fully part of the group, is because that is not something that he is able to be a part of. And I thought that it was interesting that as long as Bunny had been friends with them because he and Henry were said to have been very long friends. That Bunny had not been a part of that either. And so, moving on, Francis is also an interesting character, but I think he's like the next one that we know less about. And so, he is gay, but not openly. And has said that he's been with Charles a few times. And so, I am including him in the section where I'm wanting to go over like the homoerotic tensions of the group. So there is kind of like a long-ish monologue from Robert about how straight he is and how he can't really tell if other men are attractive or not because he's so straight. And this is very like not in tune with the rest of the group. Like, they are all pretty, like, I don't want to say handsy, but they're very comfortable with one another. And I thought that his straightness was pretty interesting because of how, like, detailed he is, like, when he's with the group and when he's with these boys, but is very, like, oh yeah, and then me and this girl slept together. I just thought that was very, like, poignant. I also question this because, like, of course he's going to say that some of Camilla's, like, mannerisms and facial expressions are going to remind him of Charles because they are literally twins, but more towards, like, the end of the book, he is very specifically and pointedly describing Camilla as seeming boyish or looking boyish. And I just thought that that was also really interesting because I think, which I would have to go back and like reread the whole thing to figure out if I was right or not, but I think that this description starts after Francis assaulted him. It's understandable that he, doesn't want to talk about it in detail or how it's affecting him or has affected him. Like, it just kind of happens and then we don't think about it again, which I think is very interesting because of how, like, adamant he is that he is not attracted to men in the slightest. And, like, obviously it's disgusting that that even happened to him. And I'm not trying to say that, like, oh, well, he didn't react in the right way or whatever. Like, I just thought that it was, like, an interesting character deviation, I felt, because he barely, like, thinks about it or tells us how he feels about it. And of course, that is not going into reasons why I think he's gay, because that's not fair. The last major character is Henry, and I'm very embarrassed to admit that I still don't know what I make of Henry or what his motivations are. He is still like an enigma to me. I have literally been thinking about this book for like a month now. Henry is the wealthiest, the most charismatic, the most like giving, and then also manipulative and unsympathetic as well. And so that's why I'm having like such a tough time with it, because like it is obvious that he is pulling strings throughout the book, right? Even before like you get to the end. Because like I noticed that sometimes like when he would be talking, like it would specifically mention like his face being in shadow and then remarking on it being brought back into the light whenever he was done or they got interrupted or something. And I was trying to focus really hard on that, but I only remember like one or two instances of it, but I did note it. But it's like hard for me to understand like where his motivations come from, because I don't know what his goals are with everything that's been going on and what happens at the very end, which I'm not going to be spoiling. Like, does he want to live forever? It's hard to grasp meaning from that with what happens at the very end of the book. When Charles is like fully in his paranoia, he makes a good point that it is Henry's fault that any of this had happened, because he was the one that killed the man, and then he was the one that planned, and then allegedly also killed Bunny. Like, he is the one that put all of these things into motion. Throughout the book, Robert really admires Henry for his intellect and his generosity and his kindness, but it's like, how much of that is fabricated because of how unempathetic he is? Like, he does not give a fuck about Bunny's family or Bunny for dying, even though they were best friends for years. They were close friends, I should say. He also had this obsession with the Greeks and their free will. Like, he's the one that wanted to recreate the Bacchanal. So it's like, he's the one that I think when I reread this, I'm going to try and pay the most attention to, because I really want to understand what he was trying to do and what outcome he wanted from this. Especially with like the ending with him and Camilla, I want to know what the fuck he said to Camilla. But because Robert couldn't hear, I'll never know. And it haunts me in the best way. I love this book. Literally, like a masterpiece. Those are like my biggest takeaways of my reading experience, and I didn't even delve into like what I loved about the writing and the pacing and things like that. Trust me, it's delicious. This could have been like, I don't want to say 1,000 more pages because that is a lot, but like this could have been like another 400 pages and I would have eaten it up. But I do think, like, I really do love how this book is very show and not tell. I love being able to come up with my own thoughts and being allowed to do so. Like, it's not thrown at me or like served up to me on a platter. I really do appreciate that. Heavy recommend. We gotta get through this. Okay, third book. I read What Hunger by Catherine Dang, and let's just say it left me wanting. I wasn't like super impressed, but it wasn't like terrible either. Luckily, it was not very long, and it did not take me that long to read, but I was definitely like trying to get through it quickly. So like, short summary, this is about a 14-year-old girl from an immigrant family whose older brother dies, and so she has to kind of navigate high school teenagers, like getting into high school for the first time. And after a traumatic sexual assault, she develops an obsessive taste for raw and still living meat. So what I did like about this one was the perspective of being an immigrant family in America, because I think it really shows like how that dynamic shapes their family's lifestyle and how they interact with each other and how they understand each other, or more like how they don't understand each other. And it is like a very heavy, steady theme throughout the novel, so I think that really does add into that. So like, Ronnie will talk about things like when they have family gatherings and Vietnamese gatherings. It is always a point of the adults to talk about how Americanized her and her brother are, especially because they don't know how to speak Vietnamese and they don't know a lot about like Vietnamese culture because their parents never taught it to them. And then in turn, they don't know a lot about their parents' lives in Vietnam, and they have like a hard time communicating because not only do they not know how to speak Vietnamese, their parents still have like a hard time with English. And so it causes like this large chasm between the parents and the children where neither party really knows how to communicate with the other one what they're feeling and what they're dealing with. But you're also shown like how it builds and builds resentment because like they're resenting their parents for like strict rules and things they consider like dumb, like every teenager does. But the parents are also like deathly afraid of the world because of how they grew up, but they do recognize that their children have it a lot easier than where they were because they fled Vietnam during the war. I also liked, well, it feels wrong to say liked, but I thought Ronnie's attitude and moodiness after her brother dies was very realistic. So I did want to give credit for that too. But unfortunately, I was not a huge fan of the writing style. I mean, the character is 14, so like it is a little bit juvenile, but on like a sentence level, there are multiple sentences that are word for word repeated. Like her brother Tommy smiling awkwardly up at her from his portrait on the memorial table, or how she wishes she could eat the earlobe in her mouth. Like, I'm not even joking, it is word for word, and it's really distracting and annoying. Then, I wasn't like a huge fan on how quickly she just accepted that she liked eating raw and human meat. Like, I feel like it would have been a lot more interesting to have some kind of like build up and like confusion and maybe revulsion of this like sudden like obsessive and lingering want. I just think it would make it have like a lot more to say because she develops this fixation after she is sexually assaulted and bites his earlobe off, but she spits it out. She doesn't eat it. So like after this, it is an immediate, I need to get revenge and eat this person, but also I want to eat raw meat and stuff like that. And I think it would have just added a lot more like tension. It would have added a lot more like character and maybe even like development of the character. There's nothing other than this is what I want and this is how I'm planning on getting it. And like even though it's trying to be like a sexual assault like revenge type story, it doesn't even complete that because each time she goes to do this, she leaves of her own will. And so it kind of just makes it feel unresolved because she doesn't like get justice at the end, and then also it kind of like fizzles out the tension to the story. It's anticlimactic and disappointing. Another thing is, I wish that they would have let the brother live for a lot longer because I really don't think it would have changed, like, I mean, it would have changed the story, obviously, but it would have allowed us to have more, like, time to connect and care about him as a character. Like, it's very formulaic in that it's like, okay, we're going to establish the relationships. There's going to be a huge fight that is, like, a little physical, and kid's going to die same day before it's resolved. Like, boom, 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 done. It was so obvious that it just like made me not even care about him at all, which is a shame because he is a big part of the story. Like, he was her brother, and so she is very fixated on him because not only was like he her brother, but he's also the only person in the world that understood what their life is like. Now she's literally alone in that, and I think that would have made a lot more nuance and interest in that. and it wouldn't even really like change the plot progression of the story at all. And like there was also like little plot things that I thought were gonna like lead up into something a lot bigger that also just fizzled out. Like stuff with like squirrels getting caught in traps and her life being a lot harder at school also because of the sexual assault and how he is portraying it to other people. So like it could have done a lot more for me. She gets into a lot of detail about eating the meats in there, and that wasn't that fun. But very middle of the road. Probably won't think about this book again. It was alright. Now I have read Tinfoil Butterfly, and I am currently reading All Girls Be Mine Alone. And so after this, I'm not like super. I don't know exactly what I'm wanting to read right after. I'm kind of thinking about reading This Thing Between Us, Hamnet, Little Women, or maybe even Lolita, which I got recently. So, of course, you will know about it in the next one. If you have any like thoughts on what I should read next, literally one person tells me which one it should be, I will read that book. Thank you guys for being here. I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one.